Should Cassandra syndrome be included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders? Cassandra syndrome, often described in the context of relationships affected by narcissistic or other personality disorders, refers to a phenomenon experienced predominantly by partners of these individuals. It encapsulates the feelings of frustration, isolation, and emotional turmoil that arise from the persistent invalidation of one's experiences and feelings. As psychological understanding evolves, a compelling question arises. Should Cassandra syndrome be formally recognized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders? This video will explore the characteristics of Cassandra syndrome, its implications, and the arguments for and against its inclusion. The term Cassandra syndrome is derived from the Greek mythological figure Cassandra, who was cursed to utter prophecies the world would never believe. In contemporary discourse, it highlights the plight of individuals, often in romantic relationships, who find themselves in situations where their fears, emotions, or observations are systematically dismissed or minimized. This can lead to feelings of confusion, self-doubt, and a misalignment of reality as experienced by the partner versus the individual exhibiting narcissistic traits. Individuals experiencing Cassandra syndrome may exhibit various symptoms, including 1. Chronic confusion. Victims may struggle to clearly understand their own emotional state as their experiences are often manipulated or denied by their partners. 2. Gaslighting. A term frequently associated with emotional abuse, it describes the act of making someone doubt their perception of reality. This is a defining feature of relationships where Cassandra syndrome occurs. 3. Isolation and loneliness. Often, partners may feel isolated from friends and family who may not understand or believe their experiences. 4. Diminished self-esteem. Constant invalidation can lead individuals to doubt their worth and emotional capabilities, resulting in decreased self-esteem. 5. Anxiety and depression. The emotional turmoil stemming from these relationships can contribute to anxiety, depressive symptoms, and even suicidal ideation. The DSM serves as the authoritative guide for diagnosing mental health conditions, providing standardized criteria for practitioners. For a condition to be included, it typically must meet specific criteria. For example, number 1. Evident distress. The syndrome should cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. Number 2. Cultural considerations. The symptoms should not be better accounted for by culturally sanctioned responses or issues. Number 3. Clear diagnostic criteria. There should be a clear understanding of the syndrome's core symptoms, its onset, and associated features. In examining Cassandra syndrome through this lens, several considerations arise. Let's look at the arguments for inclusion in the DSM. Number 1. Recognition of emotional abuse. Including Cassandra syndrome would enhance the recognition of emotional and psychological abuse, providing validation for victims often overlooked by current mental health frameworks. Number 2. Clinical significance. The chronic distress and impairment experienced by individuals in these situations warrant acknowledgement in a clinical setting, as it can significantly influence their overall mental health and well-being. Number 3. Need for treatment modalities. By officially categorizing Cassandra syndrome, mental health professionals could tailor specific therapeutic modalities, fostering better outcomes for affected individuals. Number 4. Raising awareness. Inclusion in the DSM could lead to greater awareness regarding the impact of relationships with narcissistic individuals, enlightening both clinicians and the public about these dynamics. Now, let's look at arguments against inclusion. Number 1. Overlap with existing disorders. Critics argue that the symptoms encapsulated by Cassandra syndrome might overlap significantly with existing mental health diagnoses, such as PTSD, depression, or anxiety. This raises the question of whether a new syndrome is necessary. Number 2. Potential for misdiagnosis. There is concern that the inclusion could broaden the scope of what is considered a mental health issue, potentially leading to misdiagnosis or over-medicalization of experiences that may be situational or relational rather than psychopathological. Number 3. Stigma and labeling. The labeling of individuals as having a syndrome may lead to further stigmatization or misunderstanding of their experiences, reinforcing a victim mentality rather than empowering individuals to reclaim agency in their lives. In summary, the debate surrounding the inclusion of Cassandra syndrome in the DSM raises essential questions about the nature of emotional distress within abusive relationships. While there are valid arguments on both sides, the need for greater recognition of the psychological toll exerted by narcissistic partners is undeniable.